All right. So the recording has started, and Emmy, did you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Emie Yamate, and my maiden name is Yuki. And so we're going to talk about the Yuki family. So my grandparents, my mother's parents came from Kumamoto, Japan in 1898 or 89. And my father's family, Takeo Yuki, his father and mother came in 1899 also. They didn't know each other. They're completely different areas. And so on my father's side, they came here because Japan was very depressed at that time, and they came here to see if they could make some extra money, and then go back to Japan and live a more comfortable life. And then also my maternal grandparents with the same idea. But unfortunately, and my father was born, and then when he was 2 years old, his mother passed away. And so the poor grandfather had to work with a toddler on his back. And in 1911, let's see, when he was, 1911, my grandfather remarried with another Japanese, and so she was the lady that raised me. She was my grandma. And then on my mother's side, the parents were they had very poor health, and they passed away early. So anyway, we'll go on the Yuki side of the family. And my father and mother married in 1931. And my father was a shipper, a lettuce shipper. And he shipped lettuce and celery to the Midwest and East Coast. And he had a partner, Mr. Bunn, and they were becoming very, very successful. And before the war, they were called the Lettuce King of California. And so anyway, in 1941, the war, you're familiar with Pearl Harbor. And we were forcibly put in a concentration camp in Salinas. I forgot to tell you, this all happened in Salinas. Mm-hmm. And that's where
they settled.
Yes, that's where we were born. My siblings are. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm skipping around here.
That's okay.
So, and then in 1942, we were put into a camp, and on the rodeo grounds of Salinas, and then in 3 months, we were put on a train and taken into the desert. And that was really horrible because I remember I was 10, and I remember the temperature was 120, and then we were put on a bus and driven in the desert. And that's where we stayed for 3 years. And I forgot to tell you that I was born in 1932,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a brother who's 3 years younger.
Mm-hmm.
And then a baby, at this time, a baby sister that was 1 year old. This is in 1942. And so here we spent the duration of the war in this camp. And then in 1945, 2 weeks before the war ended, my father and mother bought this house in Los Gatos, which is now called Bascom. Well, no, they're on Los Gatos, San Jose Boulevard. So that's when we first became acquainted with Los Gatos. And my father couldn't go back to Salinas because it was still very racist, and he was not welcome there because he was a successful businessman.
Wow, I see.
So we couldn't go back to Salinas. So that's why we landed in Los Gatos.
And how did he make the decision to go to Los Gatos then? Did he hear good things about it, or?
I don't know. My mother and father came here searching for a place to live. And I don't know why they picked, maybe they picked San Jose, and it was a choice of living up in the Alum Rock area or Los Gatos, and my mother chose Los Gatos, which is a wise decision.
Yeah. And just to backtrack a little bit, what are your siblings' names?
Okay, I have a brother, Thomas, and he's married to Carol. And my sister, Penny, she's
about 9 years younger than you, right?
She's 9 years younger.
Okay.
Yes, right.
Okay.
And she married into Morimoto, Edward Morimoto. They have 2 children. I have 5. And the youngest, Herbert, was actually born in Los Gatos. He was born in 1950.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And lives in Malibu.
Okay. So you have 3 siblings then?
I have, yes, 3 siblings.
Okay. Okay.
But I have 5 children.
Big family. Wow. That's great. And so you landed so 2 weeks before the war ended then, your parents were able to move to Los Gatos, or at least buy a house there then?
Yeah.
Okay. And were you all able to travel together as a family?
Yeah, we were, well, I was 13, it was at 12 or 13. Yes, we came back. They came first, and they picked, we still had our car, and he came back. They came back and picked us up. And there was my grandmother too. So let's see how many in the car. 2, 5, 6 people in the car.
Wow. Wow. And you said that your camp was in Arizona?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
In the desert, yes.
Okay.
By the Sonora, well, it was in the Sonora desert.
I see.
Very, very, very hot.
Yeah.
No air conditioning.
Can I ask, what happened to the land in Salinas after you were removed?
Well, I mentioned in my father had a Caucasian partner, so we were uniquely fortunate because he kept the business going. But many people lost their everything. You know, they were given maybe less than 5 days notice that they had to leave, and you can only bring what you can carry, and so they had to sell or store everything. I mean, if you had 5 days notice and you had to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, each person was only allowed one bag, right?
Everybody has a different situation, but not good.
Yeah, yeah. And your father was able to store his car then in Salinas with his partner?
He had everything.
Okay.
But as I say, we were uniquely fortunate.
Mm-hmm. But still, you couldn't return to Salinas, or your father felt that it was unsafe, right, because of the racism.
Yeah, in fact, we got a letter from the bank, don't come back.
Oh, wow. Okay. Even though his business was successful, they still.
Well, because it's because his business is successful, we were not welcome back.
I see. Okay, so jumping forward then to moving to Los Gatos, you were about 12 or 13, and then
I went into 8th grade at Cambridge School. It no longer exists. And then there, I went to Los Gatos and graduated in 1950.
Right, the same year as Bob Inamoto, right?
Right, we were classmates.
Yeah. I heard that from Bob that your family also attended the Buddhist church in Japantown, right?
Yes, in San Jose.
When did you start attending there?
Well, as soon as
you moved. Okay. And were there other families in town that also attended the same temple besides Bob's family?
Oh, well, most of us were Japanese.
So there were other Japanese families that would go there.
Yes, we have a beautiful temple. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have, yes. Yeah. Okay.
That was there before we came. I mean, we were newcomers.
Do you remember any of the names of the other families in town who attended the same temple?
Well, it's a big temple.
Mostly, like, did you go to school with any people besides? So there's Bob Idemoto, whose family also is when it sounds like.
Well, Bob Idemoto and I were the only Japanese at Los Gatos.
Okay.
Well, no.
In your class, maybe.
In our class, there was 1 or 2 in each class.
I see.
Very few.
Was your family involved in any like organizations or anything during that time in Los Gatos?
No.
Okay, but you did. But did you feel like there was a pretty good welcoming?
Yes, but there's still the war is fresh.
Yeah.
And we have the face of the enemy, so see. And people were not internationally knowledgeable like now.
Right.
We have a TV. We were kind of like, not, I hate to say freaks, but oddities. Especially in Los Gatos. San Jose, I'm sure there were more.
Yeah. So going to school then, when you first came to Los Gatos, was that difficult for you?
I know. I wasn't that sensitive to it. I think I was treated pretty good.
That's good to hear. I'm glad. Let's see. So then you graduated in 1950.
Right.
And school was relatively calm and good for you, and you were treated okay.
Yes.
Where did you go after the high school?
I went to San Jose State.
Mm-hmm.
And in my third year, I met my husband, who was going to University of Santa Clara as a pre-med student. And then I graduated in 1954, and we got married.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved to St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
We were going to medical school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there for 3 years. Because when we married, he was a freshman in medical school. And spent 3 years. And then we came back, and he was an intern at the county. We used to call it the county hospital. It's the medical center, on Pasco.
Mm-hmm.
Big hospital.
Yes.
And spent a year again in this area. And then when he finished his internship, he volunteered to be drafted, because there was a draft yet. And they had postponed his draft until he finished his education. So as soon as he finished his education, he knew he was going to get drafted. So we got that out of the way. And we spent 3 years in Germany, which was had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't know about me, do you? Pardon me?
Oh, sorry. Was he based in Germany,
Yeah.
or was he sent out?
He was based in Pirmasens, Münchweiler Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to stay together. So we had a wonderful time in Europe. And then we came back, and he went to subspecialty, residency in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So we were 4 years there, and he started his practice right away in San Jose, and he's very successful. Started by himself into the asthma allergy.
Oh, okay. Very cool. And your husband is from the Bay Area?
He was from Monterey originally.
Yes.
Before the war,
Mm-hmm.
he was in Monterey.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then he went to Santa Clara University for school.
Right.
Okay, I see. And so you both were.
But he went to Campbell High School.
Oh, okay.
Enemy school. In our days, it was very.
Yeah.
Really.
And you didn't know each other then, though,
No.
when he went to Campbell. I see. So you both had the desire to always sort of settle down in this area in Los Gatos.
Yes, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
World affairs. We ended up in Michigan because he volunteered to spend, instead of 2 years, 3 years in the United States Army. And they offered him, if he stays the 3 years, he would be, I would be, what do you call it? A dependent. So I had all the privileges of being in the Army. And then he was supposed to be, and they promised him a curtailment to start residency. Well, the things got very bad. Let's see. That's when the wall went up in Berlin. So his curtailment was denied. And the school that he was supposed to attend or accepted at would not wait for him. So the officers all felt sorry for him, and that's how we ended up in the University of Michigan. It was something of world.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I see. Well,
I mean, we didn't choose that school, but it was wonderful. Wonderful 4 years in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Mm-hmm. Well, did you live anywhere else besides, sounds like you guys moved around a lot because of, his involvement in the Army.
And I have 5 children, and I only have one that was born in California.
Oh, okay. So when were you able to come back to California? After Michigan?
Yes, 1956 or 57.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, 1957. Well, that was the internship. And then from there, in 1959, we were in Germany, 59.
I see. Okay.
And my 4th child was born there.
And meanwhile, all your siblings were still in California, right?
My brother, Tom, went to University of Santa Clara, and then he was also drafted into Germany, coincidentally.
Oh, okay.
So he was there 2 years, and then I came.
Okay, so let's see. Just going back a little bit then.
And then my sister, she
Penny?
went, yes, Penny. And she went to UC Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
And she married Ed Morimoto. And my youngest brother is the only one born in Los Gatos.
Mm-hmm.
He was born in 1950.
Mm. When you graduated?
Yeah.
From high school. Wow.
My mother had us very far apart. I'm 9 years older than Penny.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And were you pretty close with some, I guess you couldn't have been that close to Herbert because he was so much younger, but were you pretty close with your other siblings?
Yes, well.
Because you were the oldest, and so you probably had to take care of them a lot.
My sister and I, we were 9 years apart, and so and I'm already.
Yeah.
So until she got married, and then we got close, We have nothing in common.
I see. So going back a little bit, then your father, what did he do when he settled in Los Gatos?
Well, he still ran the business with Mr. Bunn.
Okay.
and he went there, weekly, and uh, uh, and a lot of telephoning. When we were in camp, there was no telephone, and so I guess they did it by correspondence. But he made all the big decisions, and but it was very difficult because he's languishing in the desert prison, and
Yeah.
So camp life. When we first went there, it was, of course, very disorganized, but we had to educate the children, and they had makeshift teachers. They're already out of high school, and we didn't know how long we were going to be there, and they became policemen and different kind of careers they had to create from nothing. And my father, who was a businessman, became a cook. And he didn't know, before this, he didn't know how to boil water, but then he learned a lot, and that became his hobby in his later years. But people had to be creative.
Yeah, definitely. What were your hobbies growing up?
Oh, you mean when I was in camp?
Or just in general too, or in camp? Yeah, both.
We went hiking. It was very hot. All I could remember was very.
Yeah.
And well, I learned to swim there. For us kids, it was fun because I grew up in a lettuce field, nothing, and then to go in and then have so many children your age, it was fun. But
Do you remember anything like your parents doing to feel like it was normal? Like, do you remember anything that they did to make you feel comfortable?
well, we were actually in a safe community because we're all Japanese and they don't do crimes, and we were pretty much let loose.
Did they? So Bob was telling me that at Heart Mountain, for the first month or two, they had, barbed wire fences and stuff,
Yeah.
and then they took them down because they didn't really need them.
No.
Was that the same case for you?
When we were put into the rodeo grounds, we were guarded with guns. I mean, the kids would see, if we go near them, they would point that gun at you. And then when we went to Poston, there was the fence, but you couldn't escape from Poston because many people died when they went into the desert. They didn't need walls.
Right.
That makes sense. Soldiers.
I see.
But at first, and then they realized we were not dangerous people.
Yeah.
So it became very lax, but we still couldn't go out. And then about the second year, they allowed young men, to go out and do some work. And, and also they were also drafted, young. And little by little they were let out. But people who were left in the camp, it was really awful because um, they took uh, people away from home, and now when the United States government says now you can go, leave, well, they didn't know where to go, and there were some very tragic situations, but we were okay.
Mm-hmm.
Felt sorry for some of our friends.
Mm-hmm. Did you keep in touch with any of the other friends that you met there? Were you able to?
No, I didn't. A lot of people did, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I assume it might have been hard to keep in touch if you didn't know where
yeah,
they were going, or if they didn't know where they were going.
right.
So, yeah, it's difficult. So then, I guess, did you have anything else you wanted to share about camp life, or did you want to talk more about after that?
Well, you know, as I said, we were children, but if you think about it, Franklin and Delano Roosevelt really
Yeah.
did a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My father kept saying they can't do this to me because I'm an American citizen, and so we were one of the last ones to go in.
Mm-hmm.
But it was 100%. No Japanese on the West Coast. 120,000. So we're very small people and very lawful. We all paid our taxes. And do you know about the 442nd?
Yes. I know that we had a speaker from the Japanese American Museum who talked a little bit about that at the library when we were opened last year. Yeah.
Yeah. They were the most decorated
Yeah.
soldiers.
Yes. Yeah.
There was no one in my family because my father was too young to be the First World War. He was too young. And the Second World War, he was too old to be drafted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
and then we were all too young, so there was nobody involved in the army.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, did you have?
Huh?
Daniel, did you have a question?
Pardon me?
I was wondering, how old was your father when your family was sent to the, I guess in Salinas?
How would I figure that out?
You could probably do some math. What was his year? What year was he born?
He was born in 1905, and we were put in camp in 1945. So you do the math.
Yeah, but about 40.
I was 13. No, I was gonna be.
You were 10?
Yeah.
Or 9 or 10?
I was 10 when we went to camp. When the war started, I was still 9. Because my birthday is on the 19th of December.
I see. Yeah,
So
so he was 40.
He's 40?
Did he ever talk about when you returned back to Los Gatos as a family? Did he ever talk about his experience as far as finding a place to live? Like, was it hard for him to find a house where someone would purchase?
Someone would sell us a house.
Yeah.
I do remember, well, Mr. John Andrea. We bought the house from an Italian,
What was the name that you said?
Gian Andrea, Mr. Gian. And I remember he told my father, uh, I'm going to sell you this house because we're Italians and we fought on the same side of the war.
Oh, wow.
He was joking. because, you know, my father could not buy a house. There was still prejudice. And I remember him saying that he couldn't even buy insurance for the house. So he had to go to the Lloyds of London.
Oh.
Sure. Because nobody would sell us insurance.
It sounds like he was lucky to have connections through business to be able to use those, to know where to go to be able to purchase a house.
But yeah, it was very difficult to buy a house, even in Los Gatos.
Yeah.
Well, I had a pretty easy life.
How was? Oh, sorry, Grace.
Oh, I was just going to say, well, everyone, you know, has their own challenges, and it sounds like you had challenges of your own, and yeah. But go ahead, Daniel.
I was just going to ask how it was at the house where they ended up living in Los Gatos. What was life like there throughout high school for you?
Well, you know, we still own that house. At the very beginning, like I was telling you, many families had nowhere to go. So we took in all our relatives. And the house is still there, and it's a 2-story house. And we had a family living in the basement. We had a family living on the barn that exists yet. We had 2-3 families until they could find other places. So it was a lot of fun because all my cousins and everybody with us. So
was all your extended family at the same camp as you?
Pardon me?
Was all of your extended family, like your cousins, were they all at the same camp as you too? Yeah. Okay. But that probably wasn't the case for a lot of other families, right? They must have gotten split up.
Well, they took them by areas.
I see.
Yeah. So we were from Salinas, and most of the people went into this camp, Poston 2. And some were split and went to other camps, but almost all of Salinas went to Camp 2 of Poston.
And so did your cousins and your aunts and uncles, were they, I guess, working in your father's business too? In Salinas, and then, oh, okay, so they had different professions and different fields that they worked in. I see. And so did most of them stay in Los Gatos after they sort of found their own places to live?
They lived in the area.
Okay. That must have been nice having...
Not in Los Gatos, but...
Just in San Jose areas and things like that, Campbell. Okay. And did your father just continue that business then, or did he sort of ever start anything new, I guess?
Well, okay, the business still exists. I mean, and the property that we bought in Los Gatos, he was Mr. Gian Andrea was had a vineyard, and it should have stayed a vineyard, but instead he pulled all the grapes out and he put walnuts. So it's a walnut field.
And Mr. John Andrea did that, or your father did that?
No, my father did.
Do you know why he chose walnuts?
I don't know. I don't know why. Because they've not been very successful. But it's still there. I guess.
Do you know the?
Pardon
Sorry.
me?
Do you know the address of the house?
Well, they still live there, right?
Okay.
I think. Well, you don't live there, but I believe maybe your brother does, or you still own the house.
Not that house. He built the house on the property.
Oh, I see.
And then my mother built another. My father passed away in my father passed away when he was 63 years old. What year was that?
1968?
Huh?
1968?
7, I think.
Okay. 67?
Yeah. And then my mother passed away when she was 93, but my father was 63, and after he passed away, my mother built another large house next to the Gian Andrea house.
I see. And so your relatives still live there then?
My sister, because, well, her husband passed away, and she lives there with a caretaker.
And I believe it was Penny who used to work for the library? Yeah, okay. And do you know how long she worked for the library?
No, I don't.
Did you have any sort of like part-time jobs or anything in Los Gatos when you were growing up? Was that?
I did while I was going to college. I don't know what it is now, but it was the Nolan drugstore.
Oh, okay.
It's right by Highway 9 on Santa Cruz Avenue.
And you worked there throughout college? I'm sorry?
As a student.
As a student, yeah.
He had a drugstore, a pharmacy, and on the side he sold art goods, and I wasn't very good, but I worked there.
I see.
But if you look it up, there was many drugstores in Los Gatos. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
But if you look it up, there's Nolan's.
Nolan. Do you know where it was located?
Yeah, it was Highway 9, and it was on the side of the theater, same side. It's not a drugstore now. I don't know what it is now. Everything's changed.
Yeah.
There was a grocery store in the middle of the main station. It's Santa Cruz Avenue, I think.
So right in the downtown area, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you happen to live like in the dormitories in San Jose State, or were you living at home?
I was living at home.
And did you take the bus to go to your classes?
I think I learned to drive.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I used to take the Peerless bus from Los Gatos, from from my home to the high school.
Mm. How long did that take?
I don't know where. So if I was real industrious, I could have taken a bicycle, but no, that's too far.
Mm.
You know the Peerless bus?
I heard about it from Bob, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you do an interview with Bob?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, he did a wonderful job talking about his life, and he gave lots of details, and it was really fun. Yeah, he's a really nice man. Yeah. Do you still keep in touch with any of your friends from high school?
Well,
or people you grew up with?
we weren't much of a friends in high school, but we became much more friends in our adult life.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to, I don't know if he told you, but he always he was the president of our class.
Yeah.
And he always arranged the reunion.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So every 5 years, there's a reunion, and we always enjoy it. But I don't know if we're going to do it this year, because it should be our 60th reunion.
Yeah.
The 60th high school reunion, and he does a real good job. And but I don't know about this year. We should have one this year. Say anything about
that. How has life been for you during the pandemic? Has it been okay for you?
I don't go out. And I'm told not to go out.
Well, that's the way to keep healthy and safe during this time. So, so you mentioned that you did a talk for the Loma Prieta Club about your time at the camp. Are you a part of any of those clubs or are you a part of any clubs or organizations here in Los Gatos right now? So they just reached out to you because...
Oh, no, my daughter-in-law is very active in the Loma Prieta Club. And so she asked me if I would do it. And I said, okay. So I'll send that to you.
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. How many, I know you have 5 children. How many grandchildren do you have?
No, I have 13 grandchildren and I got 11 great-grandchildren.
Wow. Congratulations.
I really haven't even started because, I only have a couple, only 3 out of the 13 married. And so I think I'll have more.
Probably, yeah.
I have one daughter who's in Japan. She went to UCLA and then she made one trip to Japan and she met somebody.
Wow.
She stayed. And she's a grandmother and she has 6, 7 grandchildren. So.
Wow.
Do they all live in Japan?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you grow up speaking Japanese at all?
I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. So until I was 5 years old, I didn't speak English. And we were forbidden to speak English because then it would be disrespectful to the grandmother. So my brother Tom and I started out speaking. Now, as soon as we went to school, of course, we were bilingual.
Mm. Wow, interesting. So do you still speak some, or I know that language, it's easy to lose the language.
I could. This is 100-year-old Japanese. I mean, the language. You know, it's but the immigrants. When in 100 years, many words change, even in English, and so I speak the language of my grandmother. And I go back to Japan, and they laugh at my English, my Japanese.
Interesting. And so, how many times have you been to Japan?
Oh, countless.
Oh wow!
Because every time my daughter has a baby, I go, and so
Yeah.
I don't know how many times. I've been many times. Not every year, but I went last year. But,
have you visited the areas that your family is from?
pardon me?
Have you visited the areas in Japan that?
Oh yes. Yes, we still have relatives, and I don't know too many people on my mother's side, but my father's side from Hiroshima. Still keep in contact.
Oh wow, that's great.
And then after the war, it was horrible in Japan, of course, and especially Hiroshima. And my mother used to send care packages. And so they were so grateful whenever we go there. Where they treat us, I mean, they welcome us.
Yeah.
Did your mother ever talk about sending those packages? Like, was it hard to get materials over to Japan after the war?
I don't remember if it was difficult, but I remember her doing it.
Yeah.
She sent candies, and I don't remember I don't know what she sent, but clothes. And so they still were very, very grateful.
Did you eat a lot of Japanese food when you were growing up here in?
Yes, farm
foods. Yeah, I'm just always curious about food and how readily available those like Asian goods were at the time, just because I grew up, eating my mom's food all the time. And so, but by then it was readily accessible everywhere. So I'm just always curious about that. And if it was difficult to get ingredients or.
You mean in camp?
No, just outside of camp, outside of those years.
Well, it's pretty easy now.
Yeah.
But in camp, that was one thing my mother never had to cook because we all ate we used to call them mess hall. I guess that's Army talk.
Yeah.
But, they had a crew, they're all Japanese, of course. And they had a crew that cooked, and we would all. And since they're also Japanese, we had good food. The government, I guess the government sent in food.
And you mentioned your father. Was he one of the chefs there?
Yes. And he learned.
That's great. And so later in life, then
that became his hobby. Yeah, the whole kitchen made and.
Oh wow, that's great. And so besides walnuts and the lettuce business that he had, did he grow other other produce?
Well, I don't know what you call it. It's they here in this valley, it's all
Prunes and
yeah,
apricots?
trees. And then, but Salinas, it's annual. Everything is grown on short term and harvested in short term. Whereas here, it's all orchards. And my father's business was celery and lettuce. And I guess they grew other vegetables. But it's interesting that when my father was growing lettuce, people in the East, because people didn't travel like they do now, they didn't know how to eat lettuce in the East Coast. And it was interesting that my father and Mr. Bunn taught the women, you put the lettuce in the sandwich and you make a salad, you garnish with lettuce, and they had to be taught how to eat lettuce. And once they caught on, then my father was very successful in shipping lettuce to the East Coast. So that was their business.
Well, it sounds like he was a very successful and good businessman, and he took the time to, go out there and teach them how to use his products and all of that. So.
I don't know how they did it, but there was no television.
Yeah. Had to be very creative, for sure. Well, we're about reaching almost an hour of talking. I don't know if you wanted to share anything else about your life, just in general, about Los Gatos, about the changes that you've seen over the years. Anything else you want to add?
I'll probably think of it tomorrow.
That's true. We can always email about it. And
so my brother, when my father died, had to take on. So we still have remnants of our company in Salinas. We have all the properties, and they now mostly rent out. They're not actually in growing. So that's how we exist.
Yeah.
So I can't think of anything else. And my sister, well, you know my sister. And my brother, my youngest brother, who was born in 1950, became an architect, but he's been retired. And they travel all over.
Wow.
So I don't know what else to add.
I did have one quick question. As a parent here in town, because you had one child who was born here in Los Gatos, right?
Yes.
Did they went to the schools here?
Yeah, all my children, except for the oldest. When we came back from Michigan, we had a house in San Jose. I don't know how to explain to you. And my husband's office was on Moore Park, and we had a house in near there. And have you ever heard of Allergy Asthma Associates?
I haven't, but
it's a very large.
On Baskin or on Los Gatos Road.
No, it's in, well, since my husband started out himself, and then he added a physician every 2 years or so. So the practice now is about 7 doctors. And they moved the original office, which was in Mota, to Blackfoot.
Oh, okay. In like Cupertino area?
No.
West San Jose?
Moore Park and Saratoga Avenue.
Right there on the highway, or next to 280.
280, yeah. See if, but the office moved. They built another building, and so there's 7 or 8. They added each year, and then they have, and they're really spread out. They have the main office is in that area I just spoke, and then they have satellite offices, and they have quite a few. And one is in Monterey, that's the newest, and I think they may have one in Gilroy. Anyway, there's about 5 or 6 offices. You could look that up. Allergy, Asthma Associates.
Yeah, it's a very large, very large business. It's amazing how widespread your family is and successful.
He was a good doctor, but he at the age of 63, he got cancer and passed away. So I didn't.
Yeah. Daniel, were you about to ask about what it was like being a parent in Los Gatos?
Mostly if you had a lot of interactions with other parents at school, or how you felt as a community member as a parent here in town.
I wasn't too involved in the school. So 4 of my 5 children went to Los Gatos High School. And let's see, 4 of my grandchildren went to Los Gatos. And there was this, once when my son was going, my history teacher, he was still teaching when my son went through, and even my grandson. So you could, and yeah, the teacher stayed there a long time.
Did they enjoy their experience at Los Gatos High School generally?
I think so.
Yeah.
My son was the student body president. Winston.
What are your children's names?
Well, the oldest is Reiko, and she's the one in Japan. And she has 3 children. And then my daughter, Karen, and she's in Seattle, and she has 2 children. And my son lives here. Oh, he just moved to the Chico area. And my daughter, the Karen lives in Washington, and my daughter Moshal, the one born in Germany, she's the only one in this area. She lives in Los Gatos. And then I have the youngest son in Reno.
Wow. Very widespread. Do you know their reasons for, I guess, not wanting to stay in this area, or why they wanted to sort of venture out to different states? And
Preference, except that my daughter as I told you, she graduated from
Right.
UCLA and said, I majored in Japanese and I can't even speak it. So can I spend a year in Japan? And sure. And so we sent her to Japan, and there she met somebody, and there she stayed almost, how old? 40 years.
Wow. Wow.
And
Yeah.
then Sharon went to school, went to University of Oregon, and she liked the area, and,
Mhm.
and so she stayed.
Mhm.
Winston's the only one. He raised his children here, so they all went to Los Gatos.
Mhm.
And Michelle went to, Winston went to Santa Clara, and Michelle went to UCLA too. And she stayed. She's in Cupertino.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the youngest went to Santa Clara and law school and lives in Reno.
But do you get to see your grandchildren a lot, even though they're kind of all over the place?
Yeah,
That's good. I'm glad.
they're really all over. I got them in Boston and San Diego.
Wow.
They're all over the place. Really, Tokyo.
Oh, that's wonderful. It sounds like your family has left such a good legacy for them to follow. So, yeah. I guess, I don't know, that's it for me. I don't think I have any more questions. Daniel, are you curious about anything else?
I think generally my questions are answered. Yeah, I'm just amazed at the spread of your family and the history, because it seems like they've lived through a lot of really momentous times here, and have had that experience.
Yes, yeah. And live through momentous times all over the world, I guess, because with being stationed in Germany and all of that too. So,
My husband and we traveled quite a bit.
yeah,
Middle East too.
yeah, yeah. Well, Los Gatos is definitely grateful to have people like you and, you know, your family members who have left lots of influence over this town and this area. So we're very grateful and honored to be able to take this time with you to, you know, interview you and get to know you and your family. So thank you so much. I am going to end the recording unless you have anything else you want to share with us.
I think that there's a part of the Los Gatos Library that's named after Yuki. The lobby.
Yes, exactly. Your family has definitely contributed so much to the building that that's been up only for how many years? 8 years now?
8.
Yeah, so we're very grateful. And yes, there's a big plaque in the lobby that is dedicated to your family. So thank you so much. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording then, and then we can say our goodbyes. All right.
Okay.